Okay, my name is Julian McKinney, and we're back here with our third guest at the Gothenburg Indie Film Festival. Could you please introduce yourself and
Yeah.
tell us what film you're here with?
Okay. Hi. My name is Vivek Budakoti. I'm the director of a film called Pied Piper. I'm from India, and we are here at Gothenburg Independent Film Festival with our little gem. It's a film. It's a little social political satire, uh, deeply rooted in Indian political ethos, but it's universal at the same time because it's a very simple story. It's about a washerman who happens to acquire a brain of a donkey. And from that moment onwards, he becomes sort of a genius. Whatever he says, whatever he does has a charismatic effect to the people, and suddenly everyone, the entire nation starts following him. And then what happens, and eventually, this is the story of the entire film.
Hi, I'm Rajita and I'm from India. I have written the film with Vivek and we have produced it together.
Okay. You're saying that it's a satire with a rather much of a political focus.
Yeah.
Is there a tradition of this type of film in India?
No, not at all, because India does not. Of late, we have started seeing some good films from India as a satire. But our satire is not a very regular, realistic satire. It's a little absurd in its approach. So when I say an absurd satire, it's something which is very rare in India. Though it's very much there in Indian literature. If you read Indian stories, let's say 2000 years down the line, there used to be very interesting stories about these kinds of characters, which are no more relevant in our today's cinema. So this is one of its own first right, I may say so.
Can you tell me something about the process behind the film? When did you start this? When did this idea come to you, and how have you worked with it from scratch to final film and where the actual premiere was and so on?
This story idea is about a man acquiring a brain of a donkey and from stupid to becoming a sort of a genius. It's an idea which was there in my mind since quite a long time. It's maybe say
10 years?
8 or 9 years old.
10 years, I
But
remember.
it wasn't converting into a screenplay because it's a very absurd idea. And I don't want to have a science fiction. I wanted to treat it in a very realistic manner. But the idea was absurd, so nothing was formulating it correctly till a time a couple of years back. Suddenly, the Indian socio-political system has become very volatile a couple of years back. There were a lot of revolutionary approaches. There were certain issues, the rape of women and stuff like that, which happened, which shook the entire nation. And then, and that was the time that the youth said, "Ki now we've had enough of this rotten political system. We need a certain changes." And that's the time I realized that I should make this film purely as a protest, because even though I didn't have the time or the patience to go and sit on all those protests, but as a filmmaker, I could protest it by just simply making a film. I thought I'd just make a film just to register my complaint against the government, and that's how it was formulated.
More
Once,
than the government, I think it was our years of frustration and complaint against the establishment, how it makes a complete
mockery of the system.
mockery of the system, and a lot of people, we are actually more like a mob. No individuality is left in the society. People are not thinking anymore about what is right or wrong, what they should do. They are just following a trend or following a leader or following one thought. Um, that is what probably
Forced
you
us
know
to
kind of
make this film. Yes, that was one of the reasons, and many other changes as well. I mean, India is a huge democracy. It's the biggest in the world vis-a-vis the
Yeah.
population. And the irony is, though we say we are the biggest and the greatest democratic nation, but we still date, haven't learned the concept of democracy. That is the child in that democracy itself. Which I find
Do you think it was when you tell me about the story, it seems in a way specific for your culture and your country, but also it seems to have sort of a global appeal. The idea of following a leader without reflecting upon or in larger groups doing things that aren't
has a big
morally
true,
correct.
true.
How has the response been in India, and how has the response been abroad?
In India, it was pretty decent response. Abroad, there was much better response than in India, I would say.
That was interesting
That
because
was
we
pretty
thought.
interesting because we thought it's in a story deeply engrossed in Indian thoughts, Indian political system. Even I had it was shown in many international film festivals. For instance, Cardiff as well. Then there was in Chicago. There was one film festival. And we had in Alexandria,
Kosovo.
Kosovo, the film festival. Um, many others like that. In Jakarta, in Indonesia.
What we really found interesting was a lot of people could connect to the
Connect with the story.
and somewhere they found a reflection of their own problems and their own issues in the film. And this we kind of knew at the very start of the film that this was a global concept because we could see the same things happening all
All across
across,
the world.
whether it was the Syrian problem or the Egyptian issue that was, the uprising that was
Even in
happening.
America, the issues are there. Even in
And the Serbian region, how it was completely disturbed
Yeah.
and how everybody was. So a lot of political unrest and how people were looking for an answer in terms of a leader instead of looking inwards and finding an answer. That is what led us to believe that we must make a film and we must make a comment on this.
And now you're here with us at the Gothenburg Indie Film Fest. So tell me, how did you find out about the festival?
I think through net. To be
Okay.
honest, yeah, yes. I to begin with, when I started filmmaking, when I started my career in filmmaking, there were very few inspirations in my life. Mark Berman used to be one of them. So when I was just figuring it out, if there are any film festivals here in Sweden, because I wanted to travel here. Not that Bergman is right, but just purely for the belief system because I liked him as a filmmaker. I want to travel this country. I was searching about whether Sweden has film festival, and that's where I figured it out. There is a film festival called Gothenburg Independent Film Festival, and it welcomes films which are based purely on political or social issue. I said, okay, I must try this film festival. And as luck would have it, my film got selected.
Also, there are very, very few independent film festivals.
Yeah, that's again one of the things.
Most of the studio-backed films are picked up. Most of the films with famous people, celebrities, they get picked up. So smaller ventures like ours, we look for people who are genuinely looking at, researching for festivals, genuinely looking for films that were different, even though maybe not as glossy and the production value is not so high because of it being an independent film festival and ours being an independent film. But the fact that there was a new thought to that and a new narrative to that, so we were looking for festivals who would welcome such films.
Yes. I was talking to my earlier guest, and we spoke a lot about technology and that the technology of today has made it possible for films to be made and also spread via social media and the net for a much lower cost than earlier. But also that, in a way, maybe the meeting, the actual physical meeting with other people in the cinema has been partially marginalized in a lot of Western countries because people watch films on their laptops or on their home cinema. Do you think that festival has, is there an importance when it comes to these types of festivals, that you actually meet other filmmakers and you meet your audience and that this initiates contact and discussion?
Exactly, and it expands your horizon as a filmmaker because it's one thing watching a film on a DVD, and it's the other experience interacting with people. So watching a film among the audience, which doesn't understand your language, and still they are connected with it. That's a very different feeling.
Also, it was such a wonderful experience to meet
Different
filmmakers
filmmakers,
from all across the
different
world.
writers,
Great
different
ideas.
producers.
They're so enthusiastic and so hopeful. So you feel at the end of it, okay, there is hope to independent filmmaking.
And it's a constant exchange of views and thoughts and likes and dislikes, which makes it all the more colorful, which makes it the festivals like this all the more interesting, which never happens while watching a film in a cinema theater or at a DVD.
Net has, on one hand, definitely helped. Internet has helped independent filmmakers actually
Reaching out to the other filmmakers.
reaching out to the audience at a much cheaper scale and without having
But it
to
has
go
lost
through a proper
that
theatrical
human touch,
release.
I guess. It's lost that human contact. It's very different having an interview on a phone, and it's very different the way you're interviewing us.
Yes.
Face to
So
face.
that's what I'm saying. And we believe in this kind of thing. I mean, there has to be more film festivals like Gothenburg Independent Festival that can serve as a purpose of a cultural carnival from all across the world. People can come and share their thoughts, whether they agree on one thought or not, that's a different thing. At least they get a platform to come and meet, exchange views, discuss things about people, about cinema, and everything. And that is completely different what you see it on television. Because the other day I was interacting with a lot of Kurdish filmmakers, Irani filmmaker, some Lebanese filmmaker, and the way they were telling me certain realities about their country was completely different on what I was watching it on BBC television, or what I was getting it through internet. So the information is at time not correct about the people, about the country, about the cinema. So the people they are more correct. You see.
Yeah.
So when you meet them, when you interact with them, you get to know more. And in a way, it helps you as a filmmaker.
What would you say to people, let's say someone who's been here and only seen maybe one or two films, or someone who sees this on the net, on either Doc Lounge or on our the Gothenburg Indie Fest YouTube or Vimeo? If you're just at the start of being interested in independent film, if you want to make your own independent film, do you have any tips or any ideas? How do you, what's the first step if you're sitting there and you're thinking, this is inspirational, but I don't know any of these people, and I am outside the sort of conventional system, because that is also something that Western has been very focused on.
There's one thing definitely anyone with a good idea to make a film should continue having its persistence and perseverance, because it is definitely not easy, but it is possible. It is possible. So just chase your dreams and figure out. There are various ways to help yourself. There is this digital technology that has come. We have literally gone to big studio masters who were doing, color corrections and editing, and we've begged them, and they've helped us without taking money. So all that kind of works in your favor, because there are people who are genuinely interested in youngsters coming up and making their own films, and people with newer ideas coming up. So if the studio systems don't back you up, if you think it is not possible for a theatrical release, do not lose heart. Just go ahead, make it. Something will happen.
I would say it's a very old English proverb. That's where there's a will, there's a way. I'd like to suggest that if you have a story idea which you think can be converted into a feature film idea, straight away go into it. There's no rocket science attached to it. There's no rocket science attached to the paraphernalia of filmmaking. You learn it. It's almost like seeing somebody riding a car. And it looks very fantastic, it looks very scary. Would I be able to drive it? But when you sit on the driver through, after a couple of somebody guides you correctly, if you have the will, you can drive the car. That's not an issue. The only important thing is whether you have that in you to make a film, whether you have that in you that you can tell a story. If you can tell a story, you can write it down. If it can be written on the paper, it can be easily filmed. You see, the important thing is whether you have the ability to tell a story. If you have that ability, if you have, as she rightly said, if you have the perseverance to do it, just don't wait for the opportunity to come. Just walk straight away. You will find a way. You will find a way. People will come and
there
help
are always people who are ready to help. There are always people who are ready to guide.
It's
so it's all about taking that first step, going and saying, I need your help. I want to make this film. And interestingly, we were probably lucky. We always found people who guided us, who helped us, who said, okay, you want to do this, then this is the way. Okay, I'll help you till this point, but then after that you have to take it ahead. So that's how it got made.
That sounds fantastic. And also, there's only one way to find out, I suppose, if you can tell a story.
Yeah.
I would like to have a final question, which is sort of going from that larger perspective to your work. What if you were to come back here in, let's say, 3 or 5 years? What are the plans for the future for your part?
For my part as a filmmaker,
Yes, as a filmmaker, are you going to continue traveling around with this film? Are there plans for other films?
there are certain other, there are a couple of ideas that I'm working on right now besides this one. And there, one of the ideas is a very socially relevant topic, like I said, and it is something which has happened in India. It's about this. It is an environmental issue. So it's based on a realistic subject, and I'm thinking of working it out, developing it as I speak, and trying to locate funds.
Mm.
That's the second idea which I'm working on right now. And yes, if the film gets made, then Gothenburg festival should be the first one where I should send my film.
We would be glad to be
Yes,
to screen it,
certainly.
obviously. So.
Certainly. And since it's the very first independent Gothenburg independent film festival, and I'm privileged to be part of it. Because I'm privileged to be the part of the history.
Mm.
Is how it started. I would like to continue a relationship with Gothenburg Film Festival, a wonderful festival.
I think it's a fantastic idea to have this
Yes.
festival. And what I really like about this festival is that university students are involved in it,
Certainly.
and they're looking forward to making it more cohesive, and
Yeah.
they're making sure that the filmmakers are interacting with each other and with the public. And I really think this has the potential to be one of the best.
Well, thanks very much, and we're very pleased to have you here as well. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.